Well, good evening and welcome back to the Harrowings vlog and my second edition of this. I'm really grateful for all of you being here, and the Harold B. Gill Foundation, LLC, has just put up its latest bit of Harrowings from my father. This one was free, and it talks about the York County project that my father started in the late 70s after attending the Newberry Library Fellowship for using computer aided statistical analysis. He got going with that and generated the York County Project, which you can read about, of course, at the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation website, where the John D. Rockefeller Jr. Research Library still maintains the York County Project. So I highly recommend using the data there for anyone interested in York County in the 18th century. My father had work in progress still, so that's a lot of what I'm trying to steward as part of this foundation. And I need your help. I need help from anyone who can spare the monthly subscription or yearly subscription or a founding subscription to Harrowings, as it is our main way of propagating this work and making sure that it does not fade away. A lot has been lost, I expect, in the course of the downsizing of the house and getting it ready for sale after my father's death and my mother moving into a assisted living facility. This is a natural phase of life for many of us. It's unfortunate, but it's true. Their long careers in Colonial Williamsburg, though, will stand the test of time. My mother's emuseum.history.org emuseum system um, makes the collections available to anyone who wants to go on that website and take a look around. She used to be able to tell you the accession number of any object in Colonial Williamsburg. Now she's not got such great memory, but I took her downtown and we walked around a bit, and I took her to where the first evidence of me being in the world was documented in a photograph my father took of her in the Elkanah Dean garden just after they had moved to Williamsburg. They were living in Ludwell Apartments, and that was in 1962. I was in utero, and that's a wonderful memory to have. And the fact we have these things documented and we can preserve them, protect them, and publish them to give not only something of the work they did to preserve the past and really keep the dead from the 18th century alive, but we can keep them alive as well in our memories. And hopefully that my own life will be preserved here as well. I do write a bit about myself and my history, and I would like to continue to do so. Actually, I started out to do so by talking about computers and the internet and all of that. But I got waylaid because I realized, oh, I'm digging into the background of this York County project work my father did, and don't really need to go too much into my own trajectory through computerization, of using a PC and how that went. And then moving on to floppy disks that were hard as opposed to the real floppy ones. 5 and a quarter inch discs is what we started with. And then, getting hard drives and then getting the internet. I arrived in the University of Pittsburgh in 1994 and got my first email account. And that was just fascinating that you could reach out and you could touch somebody else's mind at distance. It used to take a letter or a phone call at long distance charges, very expensive, unless you knew how to hack the system. Already, hackers were doing that, but I didn't know anything about that kind of thing. All I knew was what was legal and what was available to me through the University of Pittsburgh when I arrived there as a graduate student to work on my master's and hopefully my doctorate. But as it turned out, just my master's degree in German literature. I didn't go on for the PhD work. I went back to conservation, which is where I come from before I went to graduate school. Conservation of decorative arts. And I had a lot of interesting work there. So I was going to talk a little bit about that. Carnegie Museum of Art is where I landed, and I was the chief conservator's secretary for about 3 years before moving to Denmark for a web software company right at that big dot bomb moment in the late 90s when all of these wonderful dot coms were starting up. And one of them was Web500.dk. over in Denmark, and we were going to take on all the content management systems of the world and be bought by Microsoft. We were the first .NET based content management system for the web available on the market. But it's not always best to be the first, because really when we launched it, we were so eager and we sold it to the Danish financial ministry. And it was really kind of buggy, and they asked for their money back. And that hit the press, and that was difficult times for our little software. But we had built an online help that was single sourced, meaning the print documentation could come right out of the online documentation, context sensitive. So that worked really well using Adobe FrameMaker and WebWorks Publisher in concert. So wrote articles about that, talked about it in the uh, Society for Technical Communications International Conference at Dallas in 2003. And one of the things that prompted my last article, though it didn't actually get there, was a picture of me playing my fife and tin whistle with the Rough Drafts, which is a little band, a little pickup band we put together out of different technical writers there. We actually went out to a club called The Bone in Deep Ellum outside of Dallas and played there as well. It's a lot of fun. We had some very talented musicians in the technical writing community, and it was a really bright spot in my career. Back in 2002, a year earlier, I'd won with my writer the European Technical Publications Competition in Paris Award of Merit for our online help that we built that was context sensitive, and it was a nice little, well engineered, well architected documentation suite for this software that didn't work all that great, but it did well enough that we got something out of it. And my career as a technical writer flourished here as a contractor. And then I learned about enterprise architecture. I was drafted by the Customs and Border Protection, worked there for a while, and then moved on to Department of Labor, Department of Education. The trajectory just is kind of a blur now. Spent 7 years as a contractor with the Air Force and their Office of the Deputy Chief Management Officer. We were really dealing with all of those systems that supported operations like logistics and human resources and acquisitions and many others. We're trying to streamline things to make it possible to define some requirements and then make service delivery very quick and not take this 81-month acquisition process, which basically technology does not run at years. It runs in constant refreshes. Now they call it continuous integration, continuous deployment. And this is a possible, and what makes Netflix work like it does. And you just get this incremental improvement in the technology without the end users really even being aware of it. It can be deployed, switched on and off, different features very seamlessly. So that's a really important part of what's happening now in the IT field. And I've gotten exposure to many of these things over the course of my life. And now, working with my father's legacy, I can apply some of these platforms to what we're doing here, Substack being one of them. So that's been about 9 minutes of my talking to you all. Eventually, I'll like to have some guests on here and maybe do some interviews, and we can branch out into all kinds of different directions. But for now, I hope you'll enjoy what I've posted on Harrowings and give me some feedback. Tell me what you'd like to see, because there are many different angles we could go to on, and who knows where this is going to lead altogether. But I sure could use your support. So thank you very much for those of you who are subscribing at a paid level, and those of you who are just listening in, please consider becoming a paid subscriber. Thank you and good evening.